What's happening? It's Saturday. It's a slapper day. It's time for some slap bass. The beginning, I would like to thank all the new people that sign up for the Patreon, that it's supporting the show, that is supporting the Slapstream. And if you're not doing that yet, please check out the Patreon link and check out the Venmo and PayPal in the description of this video. And besides that, nothing spectacular happened in the meantime, except like that today I have a spectacular guest. I have a one of the coolest slap bass players from the 80s, from the rockabilly and psychobilly scene, and the 90s, by my opinion. I remember when I was a kid, I was looking at those records and I was like, yeah, this guy's cool. I want to do this. And he was one of my influences, and I'm really stoked to have him today at the show. You don't hear much from him like these days. I guess slap bass is not priority anymore, but we're going to ask him all of these questions now. And without further ado, I would like to welcome you like for the 43rd episode. Can you believe that? 43rd episode of the Slapstream live from Slapsville. And I would like to introduce my guest. That's ROB PELTIer. Hey, Rob.
Hello. How you doing, man?
How's it go? I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Real good.
You're up in Buffalo, right?
I would want to say sunny Buffalo, but very overcast almost all the time. Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
Yep.
But I've been there a couple times. I thought it was nice. Very lots beautiful nature and everything.
You've been here?
Yeah. When I was touring with Deke.
Oh yeah.
You came to that show.
I did.
Right?
I did. Yeah.
So I played Buffalo, I think 2 or 3 times or something.
Cool.
So yeah. So I always thought it was pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. So how are things over there now with all the COVID thing?
It's insane, man. It's a little depressing. It's like just like everywhere. Everything's on hold. The news still looks pretty grim. What the CDC released this past week. So we're just just trying to do stay safe and do what we have to do, and hopefully this thing eventually we'll see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Definitely. I mean, with more and more people getting vaccinated, it seems that in the States is a little bit kind of like a better situation than in Europe, what I've seen in the last couple of days. But
oh yeah,
hopefully we're all gonna get out of this craziness soon. We already have like quite a few people, like piling up here, and quite a few comments. Let me read some of them. From Steve McNeil, this is going to be a banger, like half an hour before the show. Thank you, Steve. That's the first comment. Mark's Gold, hey, looking forward to this one. Carolyn D, happy Slapper Day. Happy Slapper Day, Carolyn. Sasha, hi Djordje. Nick Presser, happy Slapper Day. Sasha, spectacle, of course. Doc Martin Sound System. What's up, fellas? Ruben from Buffalo, tuning in from Hawaii. Psyched you get Rob. He's the man. He is the man. And,
I know, Ruben.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
Richard Trails, looking forward to the interview. And Cat MD03, hi all. Hi, everyone. Welcome. All right, so people are excited. I'm excited. I want to first ask you, let's immediately start. I want to first ask you about your beginnings. How did you get interested in music? How did you decide to be a musician? And how did you choose to play upright bass?
Let me just a little disclaimer first. I have 2 enormous dogs, right? And I just heard one of them start to bark. So if the mailman comes by or something, just don't be alarmed. It might get a little crazy here. Anyhow, I got into rockabilly in the early 80s, and probably like a lot of guys my age and younger, whatever. But when I saw the Stray Cats, that changed. My life changed. I saw Stray Cat Strut, and that was it hit all the notes for me. I wasn't sure why, but I loved the sound, and I realized why later on. But I loved the sound. I loved the look. I loved their style, and I just knew at that point I wanted to definitely wanted to play bass.
It seems that the Stray Cats and those like early MTV videos were kind of introduction to for lots of people from our scene.
Yeah.
So you got into rockabilly in the early 80s, and when did you start playing bass actually?
Well, I got into the Stray Cats maybe like 82. I think I saw them first live in 82.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. That's great. Where?
In Buffalo? In Buffalo, yeah. They played at UB's Clark Gym in 82. I think they came the next year, which is pretty interesting because UB's Clark Gym, it's a local university. There's probably several hundred people, maybe, right?
Okay.
So the following year in 83, they played at Shays, which was like thousands of people.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So, and that was a Halloween night. That was super awesome. But, yeah, those were, but the Stray Cats made me, dig and look for other bands. I knew there had been, other rockabilly bands because I was reading the articles in Rolling Stone and stuff. I'm like, there's this rockabilly revival going on. I've got to find who these bands are. So, just doing a little digging and, flipping through records at local record stores. Home of the Hits is a really great place. They're not around anymore. And Apollo Records was another great local record shop. But I literally, as a kid, I'd just go down there and flip through records. And if the cover looked like if they looked like a rockabilly band, I'd buy it. So that way I got into, through that method, I got into the Rockettes, the Polecats, the Blasters, the Bobcats, Jimmy and the Mustangs, the Elvis Brothers. So there were a lot of this neo bands or modern rockabilly type bands in the early 80s that were, I could get the records that were on major labels, It wasn't until later, a few years later, that I got into what was going on in London or England and in Europe. And Paul had a lot to do with that. Paul Roman from the Quakes.
Wow, that's I always love like hearing those stories. Those 80s stories, how people got into rockabilly, especially through the Stray Cats and everything. It seems that it was like very exciting times for
it was
somebody
very exciting.
rock and roll.
Absolutely, it was really exciting. And like I said, I'd read these articles. I'm like, I knew there was stuff going on in New York City. I knew there was stuff going on in London, on the West Coast, and and I was stuck in Buffalo. It's like, but I just dug around and found all these great bands. And then I think I met Paul in 86.
Mm-hmm.
So by 86, he had been to London probably a few times by then, at least once. And he opened, so that was like my first wave of influence. The second was, Paul introduced me to Restless, The Sharks, Frenzy, Demented, Dave Phillips, the Blue Cats. And it's like my world just exploded then, so there was a lot of at that time, so much great music.
How old were you back then?
I think I was 14 when I first saw the Stray Cats in 82.
Wow. Okay.
So I think by 15, I think I had I started playing bass.
Oh yeah, that's pretty early. Did you is bass your first instrument?
It's my first and my only instrument, really.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Are you able to play like any like a guitar or something if you write songs or something?
Yeah, I forced myself to learn a little guitar only because to help maybe write some tunes or help the bands write tunes or whatever, you know, it's not easy in an upright, you know. So yeah, I've learned a few chords on a guitar, but you know,
By you could
limited.
consider, yeah. Yeah, okay, so we heard barking, and Nick Presser just wrote, "The mailman has arrived."
Yeah,
You know, we
they're new
created like
to it, so
quite a cool
they're enjoying
community here, like of people that are into slap bass, into rockabilly. We have Juan Larios here mentioning Buzz and the Flyers from those early days.
Oh yeah.
Jordan G, thumbs up, like for all the bands you mentioned and everything. Um, so, and how did you learn to play bass? Like, was it, are you self-taught, or you did it, you got some lessons or something?
Self-taught. And if I'm going to be honest with myself, I really struggled. But I self-taught just listening to the albums, you know, and trying to replicate what I heard. And then again, when I met Paul also had a bass at the time. You know, I think he helped me get out of a rut and really showed, you know, I think together we learned quite a bit. But yeah, self-taught, just really listening to albums, just listening to the records. And that's why a lot of that first wave rockabilly revival stuff in the early 80s that I first got into, being on major labels, the stuff sounded great. So you could hear the bass very, very clear. It was, I don't want to say it was easy to pick it up, but at least you could hear what was going on. And then, of course, from there, I, you know, dug into some of the older stuff. And I know probably a lot of guys say this, but oh my God, like Bill Haley and the Comet records, you can hear that bass clear as a bell. It's just there, you know, Al Rex and who's that? Phil Lytle were just such great players. And it was
Marshall Lytle.
What's that?
Marshall Lytle.
Marshall, yeah. Oh my God. They were so good. And,
Yeah,
you know, throughout the years, people have asked me, well, like, you know, I want to practice, I want to learn how to play. I'm like, get yourself some Bill Haley records.
Yeah, those had like amazing sound, and both of those players. And I'm glad you're mentioning Al Rex as well, because not many people are aware that he played on lots of Bill Haley cuts that we cherish as kind of one of the best like slap bass sounds.
Yeah.
I had a luck like to talk to him over the phone 15 years ago or so, when I was trying to get in touch with everyone who was still alive, like so they can get any information. But it was just a couple of minutes.
Oh, really? But you talked to him?
I talked to him. Yeah. He was old. But the guy died like last year or a year before, like very recently. It's interesting.
Okay.
Comparable to Marshall Lytle. I interviewed Marshall Lytle for artofslapbass.com, and he did he answered like 50 questions. He was great. Really, really cool. It's interesting, you know, when you have a chance to, you know, document all these guys, which I'm doing now as well, you know, like for the future generations to find out about how did you achieve this particular sound, what kind of strings, what kind of technique, and all of that stuff. But it seems that, you know, people enjoyed the show, not just the bass players. So it's cool.
Yeah. Well, I have to look that up because that's fascinating. It's like, did you ask him, like, how did he amplify the bass in the 50s?
I asked them. You can read in an interview, artofslapbass.com. He explained, you know, where they put the microphones and all of that, and it was basically 2 microphones, kind of the standard way how, you know, lots of people do it. And let me try to, if I'm able to share this here. I'm here like my own producer of the show. So let me see where that is. Okay, here it is. So Marshall Lytle's interview, it's here. And yeah, so he answered like all these questions, and
cool.
50 questions. I asked him literally everything, you know, from the Saddleman, how he joined Bill Haley. This is his bass, original bass that it's in Hard Rock Cafe in Orlando, Florida. the one that he recorded, "Rock Around the Clock." And apparently, Bill Haley taught him how to play bass,
Oh,
and
okay.
Marshall wrote that that Bill Haley showed Al Rex how to play bass as well. But when I checked that with Al Rex people, that apparently is not true. So,
Oh,
but Al, by my opinion, Al was a better bass player, less known but excellent.
wow.
Um,
Yep.
and Sasha is helping us out here. He says like only with microphones in the 50s amplification of the bass. And Leandra, I don't know, Krzyzewski, I remember back to 86, 87. Since we're talking about that. So, okay, so I'm interested to kind of like you mentioned one thing, like you said that there was already a scene on the West Coast or New York back in those days. You're talking about rockabilly scene or psychobilly scene already?
Rockabilly, but I don't really
Okay.
know that there was a scene. I mean, there were a few like I read some articles, like I said, Rolling Stone. Occasionally, there'd be like an occasional, news clip or something like that. But I knew the bands, like Buzz and the Flyers. I believe were in New York. The Rock Hats, New York, London, Blasters, Jimmy and the Mustangs were on the West Coast. So I knew that these bands were playing around. I guess I just assumed there's a scene, but the bands were there anyhow. And I think back in those days, some of the rockabilly bands fit pretty nicely in with new wave and punk.
It's yeah, it's like those. Yeah, that I thought always that was a kind of cool thing, like you guys like combined like more music styles in those days. And so what was your first band? Was it Quakes or you played already in bands before?
Um, I had a band, but we had never played out. I played with a guy I went to high school with, a couple guys, guitar and drums, and so we never got to a point where we were playing out. But when I met Paul, he was playing with Dave Hoy, who was in the Quakes, and Chris Van Cleve, who was also in the Quakes at later points. And I think their band was, I forget what they were called at the time, the Quiffs or the Teenage Rebels or something.
Hmm.
So, I met him at a party they were playing at, and I said, hey, I have a band too, which was like maybe not so quite accurate, but at that point, that may have been 86, but at that point we decided to combine who was playing, and that's kind of where the Quakes formed.
Were you already playing upright bass at that point?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. So, cool. Okay, I did not know. I thought that you kind of like started with the Quakes. So you already do you remember the name of the band that you played before the Quakes?
It's so ridiculous. We were called Barnyard Fun. I still have some of those recordings.
Oh, okay, cool. Was it rockabilly?
It was rockabilly. We tried to be rockabilly. It was
Okay.
like we kind of like we basically did like Little Richard and Chuck Berry covers, and I don't know. Somehow it's kind of sounded like CCR or something like that. But oh yeah, I had the upright bass and you
Were you
know
slapping?
and slapping. Yeah, ripping
Okay,
my
cool.
fingers apart. Yeah. It's funny. I was remembering about those days, and I used to slap underneath the fingerboard, just
Oh, okay.
underneath, because it would be louder. You know what I mean? I was just like really ripping my fingers apart. And if I remember correctly, I think Paul was like, dude, I think you want to use that fingerboard to your advantage.
Uh-huh.
Um, so little tweaks like that, really, really helped me figure stuff out.
It's interesting. Eric Hammers from the Batmobile, he plays under the fingerboard. And actually some bluegrass players, slap bass players were also doing that, but it was there's a myth, that Bill Monroe was like cutting fingerboards and then he was not letting his bass players like to play slap.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, so they all had like short fingerboards. I seen some photos. I couldn't completely I cannot completely say that it is true or it's not true, but you know, that's that story going around.
Well, you can attest, man. You need the finger. It's all about the fingerboard.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah,
And the
you need that.
action on your strings and the fingerboard.
Exactly. Leandra says, I remember blood on the bass. Uh, I'm not sure
Yeah.
if, yeah, she's talking about your legendary first bass or real blood, but you know, we all had blood on our basses.
Yeah.
But you had that cool design that I try like to emulate with a flyer. Um, so cool. So and then so you joined Paul Quiffs or Teenage Rebels, and then basically you changed the name to the Quakes. That was kind of like
Well, I think Paul and I we knew it was a decision that this is going to be something new.
okay. So you basically created a new thing, and it was just Roy. You invited Roy to play drums, and
Yeah.
that's the first lineup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so since the Quakes are, you know, first American psychobilly band, so you're basically the first American psychobilly bass player.
Really?
Yeah, I guess so. That's how it sounds like to me, right?
That sounds so weird to me.
Yeah, you have a, you know, you should have like a psychobilly bass throne, American. Okay, so um, I'm glad we're talking about it because I'm able now like to have like a full picture. There's that like a cool documentary that Paul put out together about those early days, and then you know that's where I seen the some of the early footage, and he also played some of that. And so what were there any other slap bass players in your area before?
I really don't think so.
Okay.
My first bass I bought from a bluegrass guy, and
Oh,
I swear I think he was the only guy in Buffalo, other than like the Philharmonic and maybe some jazz guys that played upright bass. So like, I just don't think so. I could be wrong. But we were really trying to figure everything out as far as amplification, getting the thing set up, and pickups and all the rest of it. They're just like, that's why what you're doing here is so cool and such a great resource, because I'll tell you what, man, there was a lot of trial and error.
I can imagine. I mean, like, you know, these days you can find almost everything on YouTube and then just like figure out your own sound in 2 days.
Yeah.
What you need and what you want to try, what you don't want to try. And I mean, I bet that back in those days was kind of hard for, I mean, for everyone. Um, cool. So the guys that played with Paul in his older bands, were they slapping at all or not?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh
Oh, they
yeah.
were
Well,
slapping. Okay.
Paul's a great bass player, and I think he taught Dave Hoy how to play.
Uh-huh.
Chris can play, and I remember seeing those guys, and I think that was the lineup. I do remember seeing like flyers around town for those guys, and I'm like,
Okay.
who are these guys? Because I was already into rockabilly, and a friend of mine, this guy, local music promoter, Marty Borton. His apartments are always like the party house. You know, he would have these big blowouts, food and live bands and booze and all kinds of stuff. But anyhow, so that's the first time I ran into Paul and whatever that lineup was, whatever they were calling themselves. But yeah, I was really impressed. They had a really good sound.
Hmm.
And yeah, if I remember correctly, I think Dave was playing bass at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And I think they would like interchange, and like maybe Chris would pick up the guitar and Paul would play the bass.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, they were all like teenagers back in those days, right?
Oh my God, we were so young. Yeah. I mean, I was still in high school. I want to say it was like maybe 86, 85, 86, something like that.
Okay, so we got a yes from uh, uh, Leeds Pond.
Oh, that's got to be Paul. Leeds
Well, hey Paul.
Pond.
Hey Paul, I'm glad you're watching. Um, so cool. So Leeds Pond gonna be here to control the facts. So if we don't remember something, uh, okay. So you have a question from that. It's interesting question from Larry Lockridge. As an expert on Native American artifacts, your other career, did you ever unearth or play a Native American musical instrument?
Wow. Well, I hate the word expert. I wouldn't call myself an expert in anything, but yeah, that's, I mean, my full-time job, I am an archaeologist, but the question is a Native American instrument. No, you know, unfortunately, I'm a one-trick pony. I play the bass. That's it. I'm not like one of these guys that can just pick up other instruments and you know, and play all kinds of things. But no, no Native American instruments.
So I didn't know. Like, so your full-time job is being archaeologist.
Archaeologist, yeah.
That's a cool job.
I just like old stuff, everything old.
Do you get a chance like to travel with that job or?
Yeah, I used to travel a lot, but these days I'm more. You know, I worked on digs all over the place, but these days I'm more, you know, setting this stuff up, and I feel like I'm chained to my desk more often than not.
Oh, okay.
A lot of paperwork. The younger guys get to do all the cool stuff.
So from Betty, Indiana Jones of psychobilly.
I'll take it.
Yeah, all right. Sounds cool. So you don't tour much, right?
No, I think I want to say I toured with the Quakes. We toured, you know, I was with them maybe 10 years, into the mid 90s, maybe. And then a few shows after that. But no, you know, I kind of went on another course and I finished up my degree and went to grad school and got into work. But the whole time, you know, I started playing with the Irving Claws, and we played regionally. You know, we'd play Toronto, we played New York, we'd go to Pittsburgh a lot. But that was a lot more manageable. You know what I mean? So to answer your question, no, like major tours after the mid 90s, I think.
Juan just wrote, archaeology unfortunately doesn't pay as much as psychobilly.
I don't know. That's not what I remembered.
Yeah. We have Chris Van Cleve as well to check the facts.
There he is from the Teenage Rebels.
Yeah.
Or the Quiffs.
We have fact checkers here with us. Awesome. So you mentioned you're a one-trick pony, but I know you're not, and I would like to hear you play a little bit of bass. Do you have something? I see your bass in the back. So do you have something for us?
Yeah, you know what though? I think I'll use my my live bass, my normal baby here that I play
Cool. How many basses you have?
Well, I have 3.
Okay.
Like I think I told you I got rid of that the black bass with the paint, the
blood, you mean?
paint. That was a horrible sounding bass. Like I said, it was very unforgiving. Every note was flat or sharp, or maybe it was just a player, but it was once I got a K, it's like you know, I just love the K basses.
Awesome. What you're gonna play?
So I mentioned Jimmy and the Mustangs. That was an early band that I got into in, I think early 80s. 84 they released an album, and they had covered the great band on the West Coast, by the way, but they covered an old the Womack brothers tune, It's All Over Now. You know, a lot of people associate the tune with the Stones, but it's one of the first tunes that I learned. So I'll give it a go. I'll give it a little
awesome
little taste of it.
All right. You have a bravo from Sasha. It's all started now. And Juan wrote, wow, amazing. Juan Train and Jose Arana hand clap. So see, you should be playing more.
It's so weird playing without the band, right? Without a band,
Well, it is. I like playing without a band sometimes. I did a whole series actually. For a while, I was doing a series called Slap Bass Sunday. So every Sunday I would play something solo, but I never had time to learn the song. But I would just like more hand claps, more and more. All right. so every Sunday I would play a song in a different spot and kind of like try to make it interesting. It was challenging, but it was cool.
Yeah.
Casey, Djordje. I have only one E. It's two DJs, but one E. But it's fine. I'm used to this. Love Slapstream. I played slap bass in 80s, and there was a lot of figuring things out on our own. I have learned so much watching your shows. Rob is the best. Thanks. Rob is the best. And that's why we have him here as a guest in Slapsville. Cool. Thanks a lot for playing. And you're going to be playing more during the show, right?
I don't know, man. After that performance, yeah, I'll play something else.
Awesome. A quick question that I know that I wanted to ask you. So you're left-handed. You always played left-handed bass, right?
Yeah.
Do you need to have like a different setup, or you just buy a regular right-handed bass but you just play left-handed?
Yes. The latter of the two. I just play on the other side of the bass. It's a right-handed bass.
Right-handed bass. Okay.
Yep.
So is that like a confusing since the strings are a little bit?
Oh, it's all jacked up. Nothing makes any sense. Yeah. I play it, upside down or the other side. Yeah. But I when I started, I thought about switching the strings. But I just made a decision. It's like I just want to be able to play, any instrument. So I'm just going to learn this way.
Ah, okay. So that was a conscious decision. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. I mean, I guess that's one of the reasons why you were able to do that restless routine, you and Paul, when you both played the same bass.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen that from the Restless or?
Oh yeah. We lifted it from that. I think we did. Yeah.
Yeah. John Stenzel wrote "Smart Guy." I guess it's because of the archaeology, or maybe it's because of your psychobilly knowledge. um, cool. So what I wanted to ask you, oh, in those like early like videos that are on YouTube from the Quakes videos, you were basically always stage left, except that one show that was filmed and released as a video. I believe it was in Hummingbird Club, where you're
Right.
playing, where you're on the right side of the stage.
Yeah.
What is the, is that, do you have a preference, or like it was, what, why did that happen?
No, I think the preference was it's with the Quakes and with the Claws. I think I go stage right normally. And but you know, with these festivals, they're like set up. They already have like the back line set up. So, you know, when we'd play those, we just like wherever it was, wherever the rigs were set up, we just, you know, we typically wouldn't make the sound guys move stuff around.
Okay, so that was, so the festival would be, so your preference would be stage right.
I think so, yeah.
So okay, it's interesting because most of the shows that I seen you play were the bass was stage left. So I was
Yeah,
wondering, what?
like that hummingbird show in Birmingham. Yeah, that was like, but like, so when I'm stage left, then I've got like Paul or Dave and the Claws, they're on the other side of me. So I'd rather have the guitar player in my sight, you know?
Okay, okay. So the hummingbird was opposite
Yeah.
than usual. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. All right.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so and yes, okay. So that's the festival setup kind of influenced it a little bit. And I love that performance. I remember when I was 12, I seen that. I was like, these guys are cool. This is great. And you know, I bought that as a one like a black market in Serbia where I was getting all my rockabilly and psychobilly stuff. And I thought that was really cool.
Nice.
And how about that, like, so I want to hear about, like, how did you guys decide like to move to London and do all that stuff? Like, how, you know, that's
Yeah.
kind of seems like a pretty bold decision, I guess.
Yeah. We
Were
had
you
to do
still in
something.
high school, or was it right after high school, or what was going on?
Yeah, I think that was the decision when I met Paul, and we you know, the idea was get a band together. And like I said, I think that was 86. I graduated high school in 87. And pretty soon we had decided that after that we needed to get to London. I mean, it just seemed like that's where the scene was, you know, the club foot and all that kind of stuff. I think we just felt we really weren't getting anywhere here in the States. We weren't really playing around. We weren't getting too much opportunity, you know, and we wanted to try to get on Nervous Records. So it just seemed like the thing to do. I mean, that's what the Stray Cats did, right? So
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
made a decision that after I graduated, that we would. I think we headed to England the fall after that summer after I graduated high school.
So how was that? Was it like, were you like, I mean,
Yeah,
scared a little bit to go there, or
yeah,
like was it like,
yeah.
oh yeah, let's just do this?
It was insane actually. What helped though was that like I said, Paul had been there a few times. He has family in London, so we weren't like really on the streets. I think we stayed with his aunt that first stint that we were over there. So I mean, and she was a sweetheart, and she really took care of us. So it wasn't that scary. But it, you know, it was a bold move. You know, I think I had been telling my parents I think I was telling my mom that I was signed up to go to college in the like the last minute. I'm like, well, Actually, I'm not going to college. I have a plane ticket and I'm going to London, you know?
Wow. How did she react?
Oddly enough, she wasn't too annoyed about it.
Wow. Okay, and then first album happened, right? So is
Well,
that so have you where have you recorded the album?
well, actually, if you back up just a little bit, we actually we were deported. So we actually came back. You know, the story was, you know, we were living in London. We got an opportunity to play in Belgium.
Okay.
I think the Rattlers pulled out of a festival over there, so we took their spot, and we knew it was a little chancy trying to get back in to England. And sure enough, man, they nabbed us and they sent us home. And then we got back there. I don't know, 87, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets a little fuzzy, but I think Dave, Paul, and Chris went back to England and toured with the Coffin Nails, and I think there was a promise that we'd probably get signed to Nervous, right? But I was in school. I did sign up for college, and I was in college, and I'm like, the tour at the Coffin Nails sounded super cool, but I'm just like, you know what? Let me just finish this semester. So I finished that semester, and I met the guys in London in 87. And then I think we recorded 87, 88, the first album.
Okay, so that's the album with the Stray Cats that looks like the Stray Cats?
Yeah. Yeah.
This one?
There it is.
And how did you decide about that?
I can't remember, but there was a decision like let's try to, you know, let's try to do their cover, because it's like, you know, we were kind of following the same the story of the Stray Cats, you know, what they did. So it was just kind of a goof. And it's like let's try to replicate that, you know. I think we did a pretty good job.
We did an excellent job. I mean, I thought, like, you know, that cover looks great. I mean, it's you know, those copy covers I'm never that crazy about when you try to look like a Jim Vincent from the 50s or something.
Yeah.
But I always thought there was kind of reply an answer to that. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like all these rockabilly cats that are trying to, you know, look like Johnny Burnett, and then it was like, oh, these guys are our heroes. Like, we're gonna do this, but our own way, and
Yeah.
make it even cooler, you know, with the
Yeah.
blood baits and all of that. How old were you in this photo?
I think I was 17.
17?
I think I'm 17. Dave is 15, and Paul is 18, 19, I think.
Okay.
Wow. But we thought it was neat too, that dichotomy, because it's like we weren't, you know, this was a psychobilly album, right? But you know, we weren't the Stray Cats, we weren't rockabilly. So it was like the psychobilly version of the rockabilly, the Stray Cats.
Yeah. I dig it, and it's interesting. I remember, it's interesting. I seen the that album when I was, I don't know, maybe 10, 9, 11, something like that. I was walking in the streets in Belgrade, and there was that black market that was happening in front of the Student Cultural Center in Belgrade, and there was a dude. I asked him to get me a Quakes vinyl, and the only way how you could get it, it's like if you order from some dealers, you know, from Germany or England or whatever. So, and then but I only seen Voice of America at that point. But you know, then he brought this one, and I thought, like, oh, this guy has a Stray Cats album, and then I was jaywalking, crossing the street. I was like, wait a second, this is something different. Anyway, and I bought the album back then, and I was like, yeah, all right, this is cool. Yeah. And how about that blood bass? Like, when is that your first bass?
That is the first bass that I bought from that bluegrass guy. I wish I can remember.
Okay, so
Ed Wood, a local. He still plays locally. I just ran into him. Great bass player, bluegrass, and now he plays like Western swing and blues and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
But I bought that bass from him. I remember Paul and I went to his apartment, picked it up, and it was just the body of the bass. You know, it needed to be set up. You know, strings, bridge, and tailpiece, and everything. So, but it was like $100 or something like that. You know.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah.
Wait, and so you brought that bass to London?
I did.
Wow. Okay. How was it traveling with the bass back then?
You know, it's always been a crapshoot. You know, I think I got lucky a lot of times, but I think the neck on the bass has been broken twice.
Okay.
And I used to have this little 1960s baby Ampeg. So I thought that was the answer. And I brought that. I hated playing that thing, though. It just didn't feel like a real bass, you know. But I thought that was the answer. I brought that to maybe Hemsby or something, one of the gigs, one of the shows over there. And of course, that neck was broken too. Yeah, so I like it was always a crapshoot, man. I would you know, went to great lengths to try to protect it, you know, but you know, it really gets banged up.
It's almost impossible, like, to make sure that you're gonna arrive that the bass gonna arrive in one piece.
Yeah.
It might not, or let's see. I
Well,
remember that when I started flying with the bass, you know, I would often bring it up, like, you know, and then I would just like put it in the restroom over there, and then, you know, one of the restrooms would be occupied with the bass on the plane.
You'd bring it in the plane, right?
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
Wow.
But I was a kid. I was like, I don't know, 13, 14, 15.
Did you have to buy a seat for it?
No, I never did it. Yeah. So I was just like, this guy told me that. This guy told me that. But it was like a long time ago. And then, then it's fine, you know. So anyway, but you know, you cannot do that. You know,
one time we flew to Japan on one of those trips. I can't remember if it's the first or the second tour, but we did have a ticket for the bass. And it was like such a pain in the ass too, because even that didn't work out because there just wasn't room inside the plane for this thing, you know?
Oh, you should have put it in the in the restroom like I did.
Yeah, right. I think they reluctantly put me up in first class, right? Because the seats were a little roomier, you know, and
That's what they did?
Get in there, yeah.
That's great. So you were the only one from the band in the first class?
Yeah.
Were the guys jealous?
Probably. I kept getting drinks for the bass. I'm like, the bass wants another drink.
Awesome. That's on your trip to Japan?
Yeah, that was maybe the first trip. I can't remember. But another time was I actually built a wooden case for maybe our second trip to Japan, right? And I built this thing. It looked like a coffin. And Paul can attest to this. It was pretty hilarious. And I realized like this case was so big, it wasn't going to fit into a regular cab, right? So I realized the night before we were flying out, I had to rent one of those like minivans. You know, I had to get a cab that was like a minivan so this thing could fit in there. And we're prepared to pay like extra baggage and all that kind of stuff. Well, the morning of, the minivan pulled up, and it's like even the minivan was too small, and this bass and this huge coffin case wouldn't fit in there. And we're like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Like, I took the bass out, and at that point, I had no plan B other than my soft case. So it was taking a huge chance, but it went in cargo, and that happened. That time it was okay. It got to Tokyo in one piece.
Well, and how many times like did you have to fix the bass? Like did it I know that it was broken quite a few times.
Well, I remember one time in particular, I think we were in Hemsby, or I think it was one of those Hemsby festivals in England, and the neck was broken. And you know, those are like a little vacation resort kind of areas. So they had like a workshop. So I'm like, we found like a maintenance guy. I'm like, man, can we use your workshop? I have to try to fix this bass, right? So Paul was pretty mechanically inclined and handy with that stuff. And, we got glue and dowels and all the rest of it. And by the time we played, I don't know, Saturday night, it was up and running. It was fine. It was
cool.
the neck was a clean break. So it's worked out okay.
So where's this photo from when you're fixing the bass?
That's probably it.
That's it? Okay.
I bet that's it. Yeah. I didn't even know that was I didn't even know that was me. Okay. I bet that's
really? And this one as well.
Yeah, in the workshop. I mean, it's like, where are you going to go play a gig and they have a woodworking shop? You know what I mean? Like, we really lucked out.
Absolutely. I mean, that sounds like cool, like an experience.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's see. Yeah, we got a few comments here. Oh, Sasha is asking you, Hemsby was authentic 50s style rockabilly festival. Have you played that particular festival, or there was like a psychobilly thing as well?
No, it was psychobilly. I think it was the same resort area. Maybe it wasn't called Hemsby at festivals. I'm just drawing a blank right now.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I know that they had a psychobilly festival, but it was just not called Hemsby Rockin' Fest, whatever.
Paul would know, and Chris would know.
Yeah, we have Paul here. No, Sasha, Psychobilly Fest.
We did a bunch of them. For a while we were doing like, every year we were invited to come over and play. So, like the early mid-90s. Yeah, early mid-90s. It was cool because we'd use that, we'd get our flights paid for and we'd get there, and then from there we would, usually do some shows in Europe and, maybe try to turn it into a little tour,
Nice. I mean, so that was kind of like the anchor gig.
Yeah.
Cool. That's what I was doing, like with my old band as well. Okay, so and then Voice of America happens. I still think that's one of the best sounds. I mean, bass sounds on psychobilly album or neo rockabilly, whatever you want to consider that album. And you kind of changed the sound a little bit for that album. How did that happen? How, what influenced you? I mean, influences and everything, but you sound like way more mature on that album for some reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about it, there's only 2 years, I think, between the Quakes' first album and Voice of America. I think it's only 2 years, but we played constantly. We practiced constantly. Paul was constantly writing tunes. And, by then I think we played, we helped produce this one. I don't know, like the first one, the first Quakes album, I'm not so sure we had much in producing it. And we're so young, I just feel that, in just a span of 2 years, a lot had changed. And we had ideas about how we wanted the production to how we wanted stuff to sound and, how stuff was recorded. I think the sound on the bass there is a combination of a couple live mics and a little bit from the amp. And I know the engineer, Robbie Takehack from the Goo Goo Dolls, he engineered that, and he had some ideas about how he wanted the bass, how he wanted to record the bass. And I was really happy with the sound on that.
It still sounds great. And do you remember how you guys recorded it?
Yeah, like I said, I think it was a combination. What's that?
Three channels?
It probably 3 channels. Okay. I think we used a little bit of the amp, I believe, and then mics acoustically. probably 3 channels.
Yeah, I still love the sound of that album, and I think it's, I don't know, it's one of the better um psychobilly slap bass sounding albums. And all right, there it is. That's
Oh,
the
look, see, I'm still using the Underwood there.
Oh yeah. I remember, and that's that K that you have behind you now.
That's the black, my black bass that I just played.
Oh, you just painted it black.
I painted it. Can't help myself.
You just wanted, a black bass when you got rid of the first one.
Yeah.
No blood on that one.
But
Man,
that Underwood, I think that was like within like probably 90 or 91. I moved to a magnetic pickup, EMG Selects.
Oh, so you were using piezo pickups before?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I didn't
Even
like
during
it.
the shows. So Hummingbird is also piezo?
Yeah.
Huh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Drove me nuts. I like started with I think I used a Polytone pickup.
Oh, I remember that one.
and then moved to that Underwood, and they're not really made for rock and roll. You just can't get the sound. The feedback was unreal. But once I went to the magnetic pickup, the EMG Select, I never went back.
We have a question from Mike Fasano. Did you record that album with Robbie in Buffalo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Robbie from the Goo Goos. Goo Goo Dolls.
Okay. Mike Fasano is the drummer for Tiger Army. And he actually helped me out with my lingo for the Slapsville and the Slapstream. So what's happening, Mike? And Chris, he wrote about a Hamsby festival. It's a psychobilly weekender rumble.
Oh.
We have quite a few more people join us. Vanny's from Finland, Charlie, what's up, fellas, and some people that are not commenting. But if you're not commenting, make sure to subscribe and check out all these other bass players that I'm featuring and that I'm planning to feature. So the only way to do that is to subscribe. If you don't have a YouTube channel, then send us an email at contact@artofslapbass.com and you will know about these new episodes. Casey wrote, Underwoods were the way to go, but yes, feedback was a pain. I guess back in the 80s, you didn't have lots of options like for the for pickups, Polytone and Underwood, and maybe magnetic pickups, and that's it.
Yeah. It was like I said, there was a lot of trial and error. I used to do all kinds of stuff. Fill the bass with foam. I taped up the F holes. I'd have these long guitar cords, and I'd try to keep my amp away from me as far as possible, to try to get the volume. You just couldn't get the volume with what we were doing, So it was horrible. The feedback was insane. It's just so annoying.
That can still be a problem when you don't have a good setup, good bass, and a good pickup system. Were you ever using like 2 sound posts back in those days?
2 what?
Sound posts?
Boy, I'm not. I don't know. Probably not. If I don't know, I guess I wasn't.
Okay. I mean, like other guys as well. Like you're not aware of that system because it kind of like makes the bass a little. Less acoustic, but then you're still getting everything you need. Blaskal does that often. I don't have that on my bass, but I'm just mentioning since that was one of the options. We have somebody from Japan. Konnichiwa from Japan. Takeuchi. What's happening, Takeuchi? We don't have like many people from Japan, I guess the time difference and everything. But I hope to get like some guests from Japan as well. How many times you said that you traveled to Japan with the Quakes?
We with me and the band, we toured twice.
Twice. Okay. I bet that was the blast, huh?
Oh, it was awesome. It was amazing. The first time we went over, I want to say in '91, there was some interest in the band from Planet Records. So we went over and did a few shows, and that's when we did that live in Tokyo album.
Okay.
And then I think that the second tour was maybe in '93 with we went and we were on Sony and went in support of the New Generation album. And that was a major. I think we were there for about a month. We did a lot of shows that time.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't know that that's how it went. So, but just like to clarify, so the first album you recorded in London.
Yeah.
And the second one in the US?
In Buffalo, yeah.
In Buffalo, okay.
Yep.
And live in Tokyo, I guess, in Tokyo, right?
In Tokyo, yeah.
And New Generation was in Japan as well.
No, New Generation was in Buffalo. We recorded that in Buffalo.
Oh, but it was released in Japan.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So was that a big deal? I mean, that was on a big label. So was it like the way you imagined it would be, or not quite?
It was great for us. We thought it was it was amazing. They gave us a great budget. We worked with Tim from the Polecats. He came to Buffalo and produced a couple of the tunes. It was amazing. We got over there. We did a major tour to support it, and by our standards, I think the sales were probably pretty good. That the shows are really well attended. But by Sony standards, I guess guess we didn't turn into the Stray Cats or something. So we were dropped kind of quickly, I guess.
Oh, so they wanted to have you being like a new Stray Cats?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say that, but I think they were pushing to have a lot, major like commercial success, I guess.
Got it. So this is the Live in Tokyo album?
Yeah, that's on Planet Records. Yep.
That's on Planet Records. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And this is the New Generation.
Yeah, there you go.
And you changed the look like for that one. Was that their request, or like you were thinking that you kind of gonna get like more fans that way, or what was the deal?
Yeah,
not just the look, the sound is different.
The sound's a bit different. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think we look that much different, but maybe subconsciously we're trying to reach out to a broader audience. You know what I mean? But yeah. But to us, it was still rockabilly. To us, we were still we still had the same instrumentation, still, same three guys,
Yeah. Well, I actually really like that about the Quakes, that it's the sound is always evolving, and it's always a little bit different, and I don't know. I always appreciated bands that are not afraid to change their sound and to kind of like research and discover like new territories,
right.
And then have that kind
right.
of.
Well, I would agree. Those first three albums, they all do sound quite a bit different.
Yeah, and how many more albums you played on with the Quakes?
Yeah, then Paul and I did Quiff Rock in '96. Yep, there you go.
Okay, so that's the last one that you're on?
That's the last one that I'm on, yeah.
Okay, '96. Okay, interesting. All right. So, what would you say was the highlight for you with the Quakes? And I mean, your whole career with the Quakes.
I would say when we got signed to Sony, um, and we followed up with that huge tour. I mean, I really thought. I mean, that was a lot of fun, and it seemed like it took it to the next level, and I really felt that like things were going to start happening. But it was just in hindsight, it was just a lot of fun. And of course, Paul was writing some really great tunes, and I was just, we were really into it. It was things were really starting to, move forward, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wish that like yeah, things were happening, more, and then I always wanted to hear all these great songs that Paul wrote. Paul is one of my favorite, songwriters in psychobilly for sure. And then like if it was like really, expensive production, and like I think that some of the things could have been probably different, because I mean you had everything. You had the look, you had the stage presence, and excellent songs. And I don't know, I always loved the Quakes. And I never seen the Quakes with you because I was living in Serbia in Europe, but you
Right.
never toured Serbia. So,
Yep.
but like from all the videos that I've seen over the years, it seems you're putting good show. Do you still stand on the bass?
Oh God, I don't. I think the last time I tried to stand on the bass, I ripped my pants.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know what though? I have the bass a little higher these days, so the peg is really it. So it doesn't lend itself well to when you have a
Okay.
longer peg sound, or the peg on the bottom of the bass.
I still stand on the bass, and then but I always take have like my tech like taking out the rod, and then it's like, oh, I can stand now. So
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
It's always going to be a problem, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, I don't think you can do it like with a rod. I mean, at least I cannot.
No,
So
the
uh
angle's off. I did the math. The angle's all off.
yeah. Wow. Okay. So let me see if there's anything else about the Quakes. All right. So people, now it's the time like to ask Rob if you have any Quakes related questions, or any other questions. Like feel free to ask. There's lots of people here, but I think that they're just soaking up like the all these stories. Oh, and Takayuchi wrote, I saw Rob's performance in Japan in the 90s.
Right on.
And Chris still has the original Polytone pickup in the junk drawer.
That's where it belongs.
Is Chris from Buffalo as well?
I think Chris is from Lockport, which is just north of Buffalo.
Ah, okay, okay. All right. So do you guys don't play together anymore at all, or
Oh
after
yeah,
you
no,
joined?
Chris and I run into each other all the time. He plays in a bunch of bands.
Uh,
Yeah, I think we've played shows together, but there's always so much going on in Buffalo. Well, pre-COVID, musically, there's just like live music all the time. I run into Chris quite a bit.
that's cool. I, as I said, like always loved Buffalo. I never had a chance to spend too much time there, but passing with different bands. Um, was it Mohawk? Was that a place in?
Yeah,
Okay, I
Mohawk.
remember
That's
that.
I think the Irving Claws. We played our first show at the Mohawk. Mohawk's a
Oh, okay.
great venue. There's Nietzsche's. The Continental used to be like the premier punk club back in the day, back in the 80s.
Uh-huh. All right. So you have a question from Doc Martin Sound System. What was it like sporting psychobilly look back in the days? Any war stories with townies?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we were like, people tried to mess with us all the time. It was just like, it was pretty insane. I just remember one time, you know, he had like the big hair, right? Leather jacket, ripped up jeans, whatever. And I was pulled over in Buffalo, and I was getting gas, and some local yokel dude's like trying to mess with me, and he was calling me Boy George. I'm like, Boy George, like, you know, it's like, you got to do better than that, man.
But you didn't have any problems?
No, you
Oh,
know,
that was Ruben. Okay. Hey, Ruben.
yeah, Ruben and we used to share a practice space not too long ago. How you doing, man?
Oh, cool. All right. So, any other Quakes stories that you want to share? I'm sure they're going to be like
Well,
somebody
yeah,
asking
like,
you.
you know, just like speaking about, you know, like we were talking about like style and the way we looked, you know, it's like we just kind of went back and forth from this like psychobilly look, you know, shaving our head. To us, it wasn't a big deal to shave your head or not shave your head and have the hair and everything and the clothes. And sometimes we wore, you know, like peg pants and drape jackets, and other times we wore leather jackets and ripped pants, ripped jeans or leather pants and stuff like that. To us, it's just like we you know, we never went through periods where we would, you know, not just do what we want to do, sort of thing. But it was funny when we lived in London, Paul, and Dave, we would go to the rock and roll shows, you know. To us, it was, it was rockabilly, but the scenes in London were really segregated, and and we would show up with our big shaved heads and our hair and everything, and we just really like kind of ruined their scene, and it was we were not we were definitely not wanted. But to us, it was all rock and roll. It was not segregated like that in Buffalo or anywhere else we've been. So you know I think we pissed off a few people back then in London.
Yeah, it's interesting how people see those things like kind of very separate. For me, it was always like, hey, there's some great, psychobilly bands, but there's lots of psychobilly bands that are terrible. There's like some great rockabilly bands, but the same thing, lots of bands that are not creative or whatever. And then they're like, good songs are good songs if they're, like Teddy Boy rock and roll or psychobilly or traditional rockabilly, whatever. It's all cool if it's cool, if it sounds good,
Yeah.
if there's no
Oh,
right or wrong style.
absolutely.
At least
I
what
mean,
I'm.
we're into Demented or Go and Torment just as much as we were Freddie Cannon or Hank Williams. We weren't going to pretend we weren't into original stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, was it like, and back then, was it in the States, was it kind of like separated or not that much?
Not that much. We would play, and a lot of punks would show up. Just rockers. Folks with long hair, shaved heads. In Buffalo, anything goes. Um, yeah, we had all kinds of people show up. Yeah, and not many. Just what you would call rockabillys. It just wasn't. It wasn't. There wasn't a scene at all for that.
I can see that, but it's interesting. Like, I mean, back even when you watch like early Stray Cats shows, there's hardly any rockabillys at those shows. Like,
Yeah,
like how was it when you seen them in in
yeah.
82?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I saw him, like I said, the first time I saw him in '82 is at UB's Clark Gym, and there was like no rockabillys. And I was like 14. I thought for sure I'd go there, and the whole place would be filled with people with big quiffs and poodle skirts or something. And there was nobody was like that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Mark's Gold wanted to ask you about your first drummer, Roy. What happened with him?
Yeah, Dave Hoy. Dave Hoy was our first drummer. Like I said, he played with Paul going back, like way back. And, I think Dave, like I said, when we went to London, I think Dave was 15, and he was a real juvenile delinquent. He was like the real deal, you know.
Wow.
But when we let me think back now. Dave and I, we were living in London. Dave and I came back in '88. We just kind of had enough. I think a tour was canceled, something like that. And Dave and I came back in '88. And unfortunately, I think maybe within like 4 or 5 months, he was hit by a car. He was crossing the road on his bike and hit by a car. And he, never recovered. So it was pretty horrible. He was, I think he was only 18.
Wow, that's such a tragic story. And so the drummer after that was that guy Brian.
Yeah, I think like full-time drummer. I think it was Brian Doran, the guy that I went to high school with.
Okay, was he into rockabilly as well, or you guys like?
Brian Doran and I were into the Stray Cats like really, really early on. In fact,
Okay.
he went to that show with me in '82. And I kind of lost contact with him a little bit. And we were just chatting, and he's like, well, I have drums. I play drums. And we were looking for a drummer. I'm like, well, let's give it a shot. He had tattoos and stuff, and he kind of had a look. So,
Oh, okay. So that was the kind of the thing that that kind of got him the place in the band, huh?
Yeah.
Is that this guy?
That's Brian. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought so when you sent me that photo.
He had
It's
the
a cool
look. It
photo.
helps. It helps to have the look.
I mean, it seems that in this scene, it's kind of almost more important than actually to play instrument. Chris is reminding you, and asking you, how about the bowling alley in Medina? When I guess other people thought you were from outer space.
Yeah, that's a tiny little town up north, kind of near north of Buffalo. And
Okay.
yeah, I vaguely remember that. We went to some bowling alley and all decked out. And I do recall it seemed like we were going to get jumped or something. So I just remember the three of us hightailed it out of there quickly.
And is it interesting. And so when did you finish with the Quakes? It was like late 90s?
Yeah. Paul and I were living together in Buffalo. And he moved I think he moved to Arizona in '96.
Okay.
And we didn't I don't think we made a decision that like it's over. I think we're still like thinking we'd find a drummer and do some stuff. In fact, we did play a few shows after that, but really that's about it. I never really toured with the Quakes after that. Like I said, we played just a show here and there, like in Spain. I think we did one of those festivals, but after that, that's kind of when I dropped out. That's when I started the Irving Claws.
Ah, okay. Is that when you cut your pompadour?
No, I don't know when I did that. I've gone through periods where it's long and it's not long, and it's a lot of work to keep it up there.
Yeah, you had like a cool haircut back then. Do you think that
My
you're gonna?
wife says, like, I have, like, recently I've had my hair long and I'll pull it up and everything, and it's like sometimes you get lazy with it. My wife is like, if you're gonna have a pompadour, you've got to make the commitment. You got to be committed. It's got to be up there all the time.
So, are you gonna do that?
Maybe I will again. I like having it short right now.
Nicholas is asking, thanks again for your work, Djordje. Welcome. Thank you for watching. And for the legend, Rob, my respects. I have a question for him. Tell me about the negotiations for a releasing of the first album with the Pirates from Fury Records. Yeah, okay. So do you remember any of that?
No, I'm sorry. What is the question?
So there's like two questions. I have
Something about a pirate.
negotiations to release your first album, but maybe something about Fury Records. Do you remember any of that? I don't know.
I remember they like Roy and Dell shared an office, but our thing was we wanted to get on Nervous.
Oh, okay.
We sent Roy. I don't know. Nothing against Fury Records, but that was our goal. Is Nervous Records with Roy Williams. We sent him a demo. Probably maybe 86 or something like that. I don't know if he listened to it. Maybe it probably wasn't that great or whatever. But it wasn't until we went over there and he saw us play live and then
okay. So that was the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to actually ask you something that I almost forgot. And Paul is answering to Nicholas. It's Nervous, not Fury. So okay. So a question. Someone told me, I forgot, might be Nick or someone or Paul, that you were that you never seen any of these like psychobilly shows when you started, and then you were kind of creating your own idea um how these bands like look like, and then you created your show like to be super energetic and explosive, and you go there and then like none of the other guys like doing all the crazy stuff.
No, not really. Not really. Like I said, like Paul had been back and forth from London at least once, maybe twice, so he had seen some of the shows.
Oh, okay.
But we were influenced not only just by rockabilly, the modern stuff, the new neo stuff, old stuff, but also, we like new wave and punk and stuff like that. So it just came naturally to us. We always tried to, maybe early on, we were teenagers. I think we kind of tried to compensate for the fact that we weren't great musicians. And we just like, so we'd like jump around it. Like, it's like, well, at least the show is going to be very exciting and a lot going on, even though maybe it doesn't sound that great.
We kind of brought that. I think that's also like kind of American type of thing. You have to put out a great show. And that's what I actually kind of learned like in when I moved to the States, when I was back in Serbia. You have a gig like which is like a small show or a concert, but you never call anything a show. And here, everything that we do is a show, which kind of like when I moved here, I thought about it. You're right. I mean, it's part of the entertainment, so you have to put out a show. It's not just like how well you play on, how good your songs are, because people can see that, listen to that on a vinyl or something. And okay, you have a question from our mutual friend named Kim Neckerman. And he is asking, does Rob like Danish pancakes? Is the real question.
I bet I would, but okay. I can't say I've ever had one.
But Paul says they were necrotastic.
I was going to say, is it some sort of perversion?
Well, we'll have to ask him about it. Okay. Is there anything Quakes related that I haven't, I have like a few more things that I want to ask you, base questions, of course, that I might have missed that you want to share? Or
there's something I should share about Roy Williams. So like, we're talking about the Quakes influences and, how we equally into psychobilly as we were neo rockabilly, modern rockabilly. And I don't think Roy didn't know what to make of us. So this is funny. Like Paul and Chris will get a kick out of this, but this was what Roy would always say to us. He'd say, well, about the Quakes. They're too rockabilly for the rockabillys and too psychobilly for the psychobillies. But anyhow, I think Roy just didn't get what we were doing, but we played what we wanted to play, and sometimes it came out psychobilly, sometimes it came out rockabilly.
I think that's actually great. It's just like having making like all the our music is like it's small niche, and they're just making it even smaller. It's just like, come
Yeah.
on, does not make any sense. It's and actually I remember something that Paul told me like years ago when I was talking with him over the phone about something, or over lunch, whatever. And then he mentioned like, songs are innocent, and I thought about it like for a long time. He's right, and songs are basically the only thing that it's really important, because that's what's going to stay,
Yeah.
that's what will get related to and everything. And songs are innocent, so I like that. um so that was already late 90s, and around the late 90s you recorded first album of Tiger Army, right?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did that happen?
If I remember correctly, I mentioned Apollo Records. There was this guy who owned Apollo, Gary. Boy, I'm forgetting his last name. But anyhow, he owned this record shop in Buffalo, and he moved to Berkeley, I believe. And I think he worked at the same record store as Nick. And I think maybe Nick had like was talking about the Quakes or something, and Gary's like, the Quakes? I know the Quakes. And it happened from there. I think Gary hooked him up with my number or whatever, and Nick just called me up and asked if I'd be available to come out and lay some bass tracks down.
So did he already had a label for that? And like, was it all? Did you know that kind of it's gonna be a big deal?
Yeah, he already had a record contract, I think with HeadCat, and if I'm remembering correctly, and yeah, I think he had the studio was booked, and I mean everything was kind of ready to roll.
That's this record, right?
That's it.
That's the record. Okay. So so some of these songs were already released on releases like before. Did you get those songs like to learn them, or you invented
Oh
the
yeah.
bass line on the spot, or what was the thing?
No, Nick sent me what he had. I can't remember, but he did send whatever he had. I think he had a couple demos and a couple of those recordings that you just mentioned. So, but there was a lot on the album that um, he had ideas about the bass, but didn't have bass lines written.
Hmm.
So I remember going out there, and they put me up in, I don't know, I forget where I was in some room in a frat house or something like that, and I asked them to get me a guitar, an acoustic guitar, so I could kind of work out some bass lines for some of the tunes that I hadn't heard at that point. But Nick really had an idea of what he wanted. A lot of the songs, either there was a bass line or he had a really good idea of what he wanted to hear.
So how was that recording? Did you have fun? Was it easy? Recorded everything one day, 2 days?
Yeah, a few days. It was awesome. My fatal mistake was bringing that Juzak bass, though.
Oh,
Um,
the black with the blood on it?
yeah, because like I said, I at that point I had my bass had been broken a few times,
Hmm.
and I didn't want to bring my 50s K, so I brought the Juzak, and I immediately regretted it being in the studio and listening back to some stuff. I mean, it was fine, but it was just, it took a couple tries on a few things. That's all.
It's interesting. Like, so what was the thing? Like, so there was no other slap bass players in California, or he wanted ROB Peltier on the
I,
album?
I, yeah, I mean, I think he was a Quakes fan, Yeah, I think
Yeah, yeah.
I think we even played Your Dead or something like that. I think when I got out there, we had like a rehearsal space and went over some stuff, and he was playing some Quake songs.
Oh, cool. That was still in Bay Area, right?
Yeah, I was in Berkeley.
Oh, okay.
Berkeley, yeah.
Um, yeah, that's cool. How are you happy? Are you happy like how the bass and that record came out? I
Yeah,
had to learn some of those lines.
I know. Yeah, I mean, Nick really knows his stuff. I mean, the production on it's great. I'm very happy with how I think the bass sounds great on those recordings. But yeah, I figured you had to learn some of that stuff, huh?
Yeah, I had to learn some of those, like note by note.
Were you like, what was this guy doing?
No. I always loved, your sound you're playing, and there's, lots of bass players that ain't really, studied. And when I joined Tiger Army, I wanted to give the, right feel and right sound, like, to those songs, because that's what people get related to. So just inventing something else, or it's not it. People like those songs the way they are with those bass lines. So
Right.
it's a cool thing.
There's a funny story about that, by the way, if I can just interject. My nephew, he one day, it was a couple of years after the release of that album, and he's telling me, like, hey man, you got to hear this one, this band I really like, Tiger Army. He said, he plays bass, electric bass, but he says, like, you got to hear this band, they're awesome. I've been trying to learn some of the bass lines, and he's like, maybe you can help me out figuring these out. And he says, like, I think the guy playing it is on an upright bass. I'm like, are you just messing with me, man? I said, that was me. he didn't know it was me on the album.
So how did he react when you told him?
Well, he didn't believe me at first. He had to go back and grab that. I don't know if he had the CD or what but yeah, he was pretty dumbfounded.
Wow, interesting. And you never played any Tiger Army shows, right?
No, I think there was some talk about that. They were. I think Nick was planning on hitting the road and doing, I don't know, like the Warped Tour, even, stuff like that. But I think maybe he mentioned it to me. But I'm like, dude, I gotta go back to work. Like I was. Yeah, man, I had like a real job, you know what I mean? I took vacation time to go out there,
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to be psychobilly, a musician, and have a real job, huh? At the same time.
Yeah.
Although psychobilly could be a real job, so it's. And you never played on any other recordings, other Tiger Army recordings, right? That was that
No.
one-time deal.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, because I think soon after that he found some bass players. He found you.
Well, much later.
Much later, yeah.
Yeah, but like 20 years later or something.
Oh my gosh, really?
I mean, at least 15.
That's insane. Yeah. But yeah, of course.
At least 15. Something like that. Cool. So Irving, actually, I want to hear you play. There's like so many stories that I want to ask you and questions, and people enjoy everything. So I forgot about that. You have those basses behind you. What's next?
Well, all right. There's another bass player that I was influenced by, and he's not rockabilly or psychobilly, but I was like really influenced by the Violent Femmes back in the 80s. And that bass player, I don't know if you're familiar with their stuff. There's really, really, really good stuff. But that bass player, Brian Ritchie, plays like a big hollow body kind of mariachi bass.
Oh, okay.
So I always liked his style, and in fact, a few years ago, the Irving Claws did a whole set of the Violent Femmes for Halloween. So I'll play a little bit of one of their tunes.
All right, let's do that. Don't leave the bass. Don't leave the bass. Don't leave the bass. I have a couple of questions, bass related. I like the slap violin phase for violin femmes bass lines. Please, please, please. Yep, violent. I always like asking my guests about terminology, like so about different slap bass patterns. What do you use in your vocabulary, and how do you name these particular patterns? So some use that like single slap, double slap type of thing. Some like shuffle, quarter note. I wonder what you get it. And before that, Betty is clapping her hands, and Jose Arana says like the man still got it. And Andrew from Russia, I believe, Shishero, clapping hands. So you basically have an audience all over the world right now.
Well, I apologize.
Japan,
Man. I feel like I'm super rusty.
Japan, Russia, South America, US, Europe, all over the place.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. So what are the slap bass patterns that you use, and how do you call them?
Well, I think like a single slap. Stand up. I would call that a single. And then the double is something like this. And then the triple, something like that.
Got it. It's there's always like a different people, use the different terminology, and then I'm trying like to make it like more unified so that it's actually easier like for communication and for improvement purposes as well. So do you use any other slap bass patterns, or I mean, I guess you did that galloping thing that you called a double, but you did that kind of rumba slap right after that.
Yeah. I'm not. I don't use a lot of other slap patterns, to be quite honest with you. I know some of these guys can do like the stuff that you do is insane. But I'm kind of I guess I'm a little more basic. You know what I mean? I still feel like I'm a kind of a real garage kind of guy. But yeah, that little gallop slap that comes in handy.
Oh,
A lot,
And I'm glad you chose a song that it's out of the Billy scene, because when you slap like with other music styles, it actually sounds always really cool. It makes every song like much cooler than originally it was.
Yeah, I find like that gallop, that you can fit that in a lot of places.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And now we're not talking about patterns, but I just remember that you played that like your bass behind your back, like on that hummingbird shell, and then you were the first one that I've seen doing that. Have you ever seen anyone else doing that?
No, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know if I even had ever done that before that.
Oh, okay.
We just came up with things right up at the top of our heads. I don't know. It's not anything I don't think I even practiced.
Okay, I thought that was your kind of like a signature move. And you're like, oh,
Yeah, and I wasn't even really that good. If you kind of like listen into the bass, I probably was like messing everything up anyhow.
yeah. Well, it looked cool. It looked cool. Um, cool. All right. So that's like as far as bass wanted to ask you, so you can put it down. Um, I'll ask you again to play something like later on, but yeah, I want to hear. I want to cover the rest of your career as well. So around that same time, around the Tiger Army record. By the way, Nick told me to say hello to you. So like, give my best to Rob. Um, just so you know, I just texted before this.
Well, tell him I said hi.
Will do. And around that same time, you joined Irving Claws, right?
The Irving Claws, yeah.
So around 98 or so?
96.
Oh, okay. So Irving Claws came kind of like a few
right away. There was a guy. Yeah, I'm sorry. There was a drummer that the first Irving Claws drummer actually played with the Quakes for a little bit, maybe like actually a few weeks, and I can't quite remember what happened, why it didn't work out, but I think he got wind that I was that like maybe Paul moved out of town or something like that, and figured I had some time to play or whatever. But yeah, he called me like literally, I think the whole week that like Paul headed to Arizona, and we, I mean, I had nothing else going on, so we started playing like immediately. And that's when I met Dave Gutierrez, the guitar player and singer in the Claws. And I think the idea at the time was we had another guitar player. I think we were going to do, I think they wanted to do like instrumental, like surf instrumental. But after a while, I think it just morphed into Dave and I had tunes that we wanted to play. We had original songs that we wanted to play. So it just ended up being just a regular rockabilly / garage type band thing.
So how often do you write songs?
Not often. I've only written a handful of tunes. Really, Dave writes most of the tunes in the for the Irving Claws. Like our last CD, Demon Tarts, I think I had two. I think I have 2 songs on there.
Oh, the full songs that you wrote, like the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. And how about with the Quakes? Were you writing any songs with the Quakes?
No, no. Maybe just helping with arrangements. That's about it. Paul did all the songwriting there as well.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, especially since you're not writing, since you haven't wrote like that many songs, what is the process of songwriting for you? Do you start with the bass, or you start with the chords or melodies, lyrics?
Well, that's for me. That's why figured I had to learn to play guitar a little bit, because that was it just wasn't working with trying to write songs on the upright bass, So once I learned some basic chords, it kind of opened up, and I was able to write handful of tunes.
Yep. Guitar definitely helps, or a piano, but in our world, definitely the guitar, it might be might be the instrument of choice for songwriting. Tokyo Pretty Boys.
Yeah.
Somebody
I think I wrote the music on that one.
Okay.
Just a night.
Question,
I think I had a hand in the music
pretty well, but I'm not sure who wrote what.
Yeah.
So so I'm a little bit familiar with Irving Claws, but not too much. So how many albums you guys have?
So the Irving Claws have 3 albums and a 7-inch. So we started recording in 97. The 7-inch we did in 97. The first CD in '99, the second CD in 2000, and then we took a long break from recording. Didn't record again until 2012.
Oh, okay, and that's the last one you did, right?
Right.
Okay, so when things go back to normal, do you think that you're gonna record again?
Yeah,
Or
we've been talking about it. We have a bunch of originals that we've been working on. Well, we'll have to fund it. We were on Get Hip Records in Pittsburgh for a while, and of course, we had little budgets for those. So the last CD we paid for, and we'll finance the next one as well.
and and do you see yourself like going back to tour again after the pandemic is over?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd never say never. Yeah. I mean, if something came up and the other guys could do it,
Do you miss touring?
Yes and no. I mean, I liked it. Like Japan was great. Japan was like super comfortable. It was awesome. They really took care of us. But like playing around Europe and stuff, and you spend a lot of a lot of time in vans and stuff like that. I mean, it's okay, especially when you're young, but it kind of catches up with you, I think.
You got tired of it?
Maybe a little bit.
I love touring. I love touring.
You do?
Yeah, I cannot wait like to go back on the road. I mean, there's something special about that, lifestyle. I like being in Los Angeles as well and spend time on the beach and everything. But there's something about like being on the road.
Yeah.
You're kind of out there, fighting your, rock and roll battle or music battle, and then meeting all these people, and then you see how much you're playing and your music influence all these guys. So I don't know, it's great.
Well, that's I would agree. I think that's the best part is meeting people.
Yes.
Like I'm always flattered that people even show up to the shows, you know what I mean? And they know the songs, they know the lyrics, it's like they're there to see you. That'll never get old. That's super flattering.
What would you say is the highlight of your career with Irving Claws?
Oh, well, I'd have to say that it would be probably opening up for the Cramps. We got to do that twice.
Was that in Buffalo?
In Buffalo, yeah.
Nice.
That was amazing.
And that Halloween show that you mentioned, is that this one?
Yeah. Dave's divine there, and I'm a Frankenstein guy, I guess.
That's that bass that you just played for us, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Any other people that you jammed with or played with or recorded with besides the Quakes, Tiger Army, and Irving Claws that we should mention?
Yeah, there is one guy I'd like to mention, Dixie D. This guy, a good friend of ours, of the Irving Claws. He's in his 80s, and he was a wrestler and in a like a rockabilly band back in the 50s, and he's from Buffalo. He made a few recordings back in the 50s, and it was just re-released. Well, I say just maybe 10 years ago, but it was Norton Records re-released some of his stuff. So throughout the years, he's come down, and we've learned a few of his tunes, and he comes and he'll sit in with us, and so every once in a while he just sort of has an open invitation to come down and play with us.
That's sorry, I had a little production here thing, trying to do everything myself, and then it's like, okay. And when were you playing with him?
Well, that story kind of gets interesting because the bass I used, this black bass that I was just playing, that was actually his bass in the 50s.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I played in a cover band years ago, just on the side, and the guitar player in that band had a bass, and it was this bass. It was this K bass, and I don't know, he like sold it to me, maybe $200. He said he just bought it from this guy who doesn't use it anymore. Turns out it was this guy, Dixie D, Richard
Okay.
Dearwall. It was his bass. He played it in the 50s, and it's on those recordings. And I had no idea until years later. He showed up at one of our gigs, I guess, and we put two and two together. And so the neat thing about this bass is that it's always been used for rock and roll.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So did you have to change the setup or anything on the bass, or?
Oh yeah, yeah. I had it redone. I had it totally overhauled. A new fingerboard and tailpiece and bridge and everything.
We have somebody.
I think it was sitting in his attic for decades.
Ah, okay. Well, now it's in good hands. We have Henson 7200. Rob, my first Quakes gig was in 1990 at the second Big Rumble in Hemsby. It was awesome. The sound of your bass was fantastic. Greetings from Germany. Do you remember that gig?
Yeah, that's the name of those gigs, the Big Rumbles, I think.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah. Oh yeah, those were so much fun. They were so much fun. Like I said, we used them as like as a way to get over to London, or and then we would stick around and play shows, and head over to Europe and stuff like that.
Is there anything that it's noticeable for you how things changed for you as a musician from the days when you started and now?
Like what has changed?
Like, what would you notice? Like that. I mean, the whole music industry. How did it change? Like for you as a musician, from your musician perspective of yours.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, man. There just seems to be a ton more bands these days. Like tons of bands. Like there's a lot of rockabilly bands now. Rockabilly, psychobilly, playing, touring all over the States. But years ago in the 80s, it just it wasn't quite happening just yet. So that's one thing. But as far as like the music industry, I'm not really sure. Other than recording now is like there's a lot of home recordings and setups at home that people are kind of doing their own thing, and that's I think that's pretty cool, as opposed to trying to get signed to a label and all the pitfalls with that kind of stuff. You never make any money.
Yeah, it seems that these days you kind of have a little bit more control, but it's harder to be seen or to have some kind of break.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. We're all in this matrix together. Okay, so I would like to be focused a little bit more on bass right now. What would you say? Who are the biggest influences on your bass playing?
Well, I kind of went through a couple waves of influence. Like the first, when I learned how to play, I was listening to the Stray Cats. So there's Lee Rocker. I also love Smutty Smith from the Rockettes. I love his style and everything. Of course, Phil Bloomberg from the Polecats. So I was into those guys, and like I said, like it was cool because they were on like major labels, so like the recordings were so good you could hear that stuff. And then of course I got into the older stuff, and I talked about Bill Haley, and the production's just so great. And then by like 86, I got wise to what was going on in London, in Europe. And, so like my second phase of influence was like, the world opened up. Rockabilly was, I'd have to say Steve Whitehouse and the Sharks and Frenzy, and Restless, Paul Harmon, Dave Phillips. So that was definitely like the second tier of bass influences.
But did you get we're trying to develop your bass skills like through other music styles as well, like jazz or something, or it was always rockabilly related?
Well, it really was rockabilly related,
Okay.
or at least trying to play along, somehow adapt the upright bass to punk or new wave or something like that. But for the most part, it was rockabilly. You know, there was always techniques and always stuff that guys were doing just blew my mind, like Steve Whitehouse. Yeah, I'll never forget the time I heard that Restless tune. That's all right, I think. And Paul Harmon does this cool like triple slap thing in between some of the verses, and it just blew my mind. I had no idea what the hell that was, what was going on, or how to do that. But you know, you learn eventually. You know, you listen to it long enough, and you know, eventually learn how to do some of that stuff. But that big influence there.
What would you say? How did you develop your own style of playing?
Yeah, you know, it just came out of you know, we knew we didn't want to play covers. You know, we weren't going to be a cover band, and it was just adapting to what, you know, at the time what Paul was writing. And I think I would have to say my style came out of that. You know, just yeah, kind of keeping up with Paul and seeing what fit and this and that. And then of course I'm a left-handed player, so things sounded just slightly different. But it just came out of that, you know, just trying to make it happen, you know.
Sure. I mean, we all go like through the phase, like, you know, like a copying and then trying to have your own, put your own stamp
Yeah.
and everything. And the bass sound like also plays like an important role in that whole creation. As far as, do you have like kind of essential slap bass recordings that you could mention by your opinion?
By other artists?
By other artists, yes.
Yeah. Oh God, you know what? You know what is so cool is I love this. It's a box set, and you probably know this. You're probably familiar with this. Is How Low Can You Go?
It's the
Released
best
on.
ever.
Oh my God, it's so cool.
I'm so glad you're mentioning that. So glad.
Yeah. Oh my God. So that's like, and that's kind of like you know, I got hip to that. You know, I don't know, kind of recently. And some of those players like Thelma Terry and, you know, Pops Foster, it's like, oh my God, it's just like, oh, it's like just a whole new group of folks, you know, back with, you know, they were doing the stuff back in the 20s and the 30s. And so it's, you know, I love those recordings.
They're great. I got that box set when it was like a pre-order only, and I was like so stoked on it. I had most of those recordings, but they did like such a nice booklet and everything. I highly recommend it. I think that if
Yeah.
I had to like bring like, you know, some music, you know, like one thing, it probably would be that compilation. It's amazing. Like all those guys, like Bill John, like whole CDs, like just Bill Johnson and all the other cats like Steve Brown and everything. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. Whoever is watching the slap stream and haven't seen that, I mean, doesn't have that.
Well, it's so great because it's kind of the connection to, you know, pre-recorded music. You know, so these musicians were playing before that technology was even there. They just happened to be alive, you know, when these, you know, when that technology, you know, was new. And I think it's kind of the connection to like even the 19th century in vaudeville, with these bass players. You know, I'm not sure anyone like wakes up and has something new to offer, but you know, I guarantee they were copying stuff from even the pre-recorded age. You know.
It's definitely an interesting time period, and I agree what you said, and I also think that the fact that they knew that they would record this like that and the recording technology also influenced their song and their playing and everything. And yeah, I agree with you. Um, as far as your own playing, which songs would, for somebody that is not very familiar with your style and your discography, like which songs would you recommend for somebody that it's into slap bass and want to hear your slap bass style?
Um, I'm very proud of Voice of America. I think that came out great. Um, the quality is, I think it's really good. I think you can hear the bass and hear what I was doing at the time. And then I'd also say the Irving Claws last CD, Demon Tarts. I just think that came out pretty good. I was pretty proud of that as well. And I think there's some halfway decent stuff to listen on that as well, as far as bass lines and what I'm doing, trying to balance that slap bass with plucking the bass, and keeping up with kind of a more garage style, or just rock and roll style. So I would say that Voice of America and maybe Demon Tarts.
Okay, I have to check out Demon Tarts. I haven't heard that one, but I did hear Voice America many times. I mean, when I was a kid, I was listening to that album all the time. Definitely, one of my favorites. Um, and as far as slap bass players now, like, are you still following the scene? Who would be your favorite guys that you think that the world deserve like to hear?
Well, yeah. If I want to like really feel like I have no idea what I'm doing on the bass, I'll just like Google Joe Fick. Check out his videos on YouTube. It's insane. I mean, what a great bass player. And then of course Ben, was it Ben Adam Ezra? Oh my God, it's insane. It's like I try not to watch too much because it just makes me feel like I shouldn't even be playing the upright bass, right? And then of course your videos.
Yeah, thank you. I had like both Joe and Adam as guests, and they are really excellent players, friends and excellent players. I did actually a show with Adam and Ezra. It was a bass passion festival in Europe, and the first night was like my solo concert, and the second night was Adam and Ezra's solo concert, and it was I loved his performance. And we did some workshops together. Amazing guy and amazing player. I'm glad you
Yeah,
mentioned. I
yeah.
didn't know that you were familiar with him, but
Hey,
he's
you know
really
who else
excellent.
I'd like to mention is a Lovesick Duo.
Okay,
That I don't know her name, but wow, she's an amazing bass player.
all
And
right,
style reminds me of kind of 20s, 30s
sure,
jazz slap.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and oh yeah, it's one thing that I always like asking: what were your band leaders think about slap bass? Obviously, like with Paul, I mean, with most of your bands, like I assume they were requesting, "Hey, play slap all the time." But like for lots of players, it's sometimes the band leaders say, like, "Hey, do not play slap," or like, "You play slap all the time," or like, do it less or stuff like that. Do you have that experience?
It's definitely a conversation I always have with my bandmates in the Irving Claws, Dave Gutierrez and Bob Hanley.
Uh huh.
But as like with the Quakes, that was the whole concept. That's exactly what we wanted to do. I didn't slap on every single song, but for the most part, that's exactly what that's the sound we wanted. But with the Claws, there's a little more nuance. And when we come up with some new tunes, I always have a discussion with the guys. Is this what you envision with this tune? I could do this. I could do that. Sometimes I'm on the fence with it. If a certain part requires a slap or or a particular slap pattern, like a gallop or something like that. It's it's not for everyone, especially if someone else wrote the tune. You know what I mean? I don't want to step all over it. I want to make sure what I'm doing is tasteful and it's something that they have in mind.
Yeah, that's like a tricky one, especially if you play something more of um, more of a pop tune or something. So it's interesting. And
Yeah.
Wayne mentioned Lovesick Duo as well, and the bass player Francesca Alinovi.
Oh, okay. Duly noted.
So see, through Slapstream here in Slapsville, we know everything.
You
Slap
should get
related.
her on.
Yeah, well, there's like lots of people that I would like to get on, and then I hope I will,
Yeah.
whoever, um, 43 episodes so far. Can you imagine this? Like 43 episodes of like slap bass show.
Well, that's just the thing. I've only seen a few of them, but it's like, now you've mentioned that like Joe Beck, it's like there's so much I want to see now, so I'll
Yeah,
really dig into some of the older episodes.
it's like 43 so far. When I was like, yeah, okay, so yeah, I might do like 10, 15 or something. When I started, I was like, yeah, maybe 15 is kind of pushing it, and then I was like, so I'll just continue. People love it. More and more people watch it, and some of the episodes have like thousands of viewers, so it's cool. Slap is always cool. So
Well, now you can't stop.
now I can't stop. I can never go on tour,
Now,
back on tour. Um, do you have any advice for people that are starting out, for bass players and musicians in general, how to get a gig? What is, by your opinion, the best way to find like-minded musicians and start a band, or join a band, or join a touring band?
oh man, that is, I'll tell you what, man, that is a difficult question because I feel like I just been like spoiled because I know so many talented musicians that just have not found the right guys to play with. And I think I've been spoiled because, the 35 plus years I've been playing, well, 30 plus years, whatever. I've always hooked up with, guy like minded musicians who wanted to do what I wanted to do. That
Uh-huh.
includes the Quakes and the Claws. That is a tough one, man. I don't even know how to answer that. Other than I just like I feel blessed and spoiled that I've been able to play with these guys and and have like the same vision for music and songs and what the band what we want to sound like. It would be a night. I think if it'd be a nightmare trying to find someone. I know that doesn't sound very promising, but just get out there and see if I think maybe the answer is just see a lot of live music and just get out there and talk to people.
It's tricky, yeah. And I love asking this question, like, to different generations. It seems that all the people usually older people usually answer like, oh, like a music stores and put a flyer. I'm like, nobody checks that. And the younger
No,
people are all like, oh, just flood YouTube like with your videos. I mean, yeah, that I guess kind of works more
right?
than a but then who's gonna get someone who's like just posting, look at me, and see, let's see, a little bit, you know could be a little bit desperate.
Yeah. Well,
But there's lots of creative people and lots of great musicians, lots of great players. And actually, Adam Ben Ezra is one of those that build like a pretty good career, thanks to YouTube. So
oh, okay.
yeah, it's that's kind of like, because he's in Israel, and then he didn't have an option to play with all these big guys that he played with later on, and then everybody heard about him through the through YouTube.
Yeah.
Um, do you have a special way how you come up with bass lines?
Um, God, to be honest with you, not really. I mean, I just like I'll try to figure out what fits into the song. Like again, you know, I start with like listening to the lyrics. If this is like original tune, and I don't want to walk all over it, you know what I mean? I want to bring out what whoever wrote the tune, whatever idea they're trying to convey and sound they're trying to convey. And the last thing I want to do is muddy it all up. So I think it really starts with that and the lyrics and what's going on musically, and I try to fit in there somehow tastefully.
Yeah, that's kind of the most important. And I'm glad you mentioned that you try like to follow the lyrics as well. And quite a few bass players actually told me I check out the lyrics and I try to catch that emotion, and then that's how I'm thinking about the bass lines, um, which is I think a good way to do that.
Right.
I would like to check out your gear in general. So you mentioned that you have three basses. What kind of basses are those?
So I have two Ks. I have a 57K, I believe that's the Dixie D bass that Richard Dearwall played in the 50s. And then I kind of recently, in the last few years, I bought the bass behind me. I think it's a 59K. And that's my baby that will not be painted or tape or pickups. So that's kind of my acoustic jam bass. And then the only other bass I have at this point is I have an aluminum bass.
Oh, how that thing sounds like?
That's it sounds really interesting. It sounds like someone's put strings on an aluminum canoe or something like that. It's insane, but it's a lot of fun. Right now, I don't have it strung up. I'm still doing a few things to it, but I've had that one for a long time. We used it a couple times in recordings, just because it's so loud. It's
Oh,
really
you did
loud.
it for the recordings
Yeah.
with the Quakes or the Claws?
I think at least with the Quakes, if it was with the Claws, I'm just not remembering right now, but I think Future Shock Rock, I think we used it on that one. But we use it to kind of double up the wood bass, just because this thing is so loud. It has a really cool sound.
Yeah, I tried aluminum basses quite a few times, but I was never too inclined like to buy them.
Yeah.
And how about that baby bass, Ampeg bass? You
Yeah,
had that one for a while, but you sold it?
I sold that one. That was another one that just did I thought maybe I could travel with it. It didn't sound that bad, but it just doesn't play like one of these things. You know what I mean? It just doesn't
Yeah.
feel right.
It feels a little bit that you're playing a toy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Desert Psychobilly 25 is asking, did I miss Tiger Army discussions? Yes, unfortunately you did. But this interview will live on YouTube forever, so make sure to subscribe, like the video, and check out the Tiger Army discussion. Usually we have a guy like that actually gives like every what's happening in every minute of the show, so he might do it this time as well, so who knows.
Okay.
But see, like, I guess people are aware that you played at that record. I thought that maybe not many people would be aware that you played kind of like on the first one breakthrough record for Tiger Army. Did you have a feeling that band gonna become that big?
I did only because Nick just seems so motivated. I really did. Yeah, he really seemed to have his shit together, and I'm like, these guys are going places. I mean, I think he was already getting offers of playing the Warped Tour.
Wow, and it was kind of the psychobilly in a way that could you ever imagine that psychobilly would be like that big in the States. I mean, thanks to Tiger Army and a couple other bands. Like when you were a kid, when you were starting out with the Quakes.
Yeah, actually, no. I really didn't think so. It just seemed like it was something that was going to be in England, in Europe, and that maybe in Japan, and that's going to be that's going to be about it. So it's cool that there's this new scene. Well, it's not new. It's not new at all. But it's cool that it finally made its way here. Not in a way. There's been bands that have always played rockabilly. And maybe even psychobilly. I mean, there's Reverend Horton Heat. I mean, those guys started around the same time we did. But there's a lot of bands now, like a lot. There's touring bands that come through Buffalo all the time. Rockabilly, psychobilly.
Do you go to see them?
Yeah, I try to. I absolutely try to.
Okay, I found let me see. No, this is not the. I try. Oh, okay. So I did find that bass. Okay, so let me see the. Oh, sorry, it's taking me this time. But these are like studio sheets that we were talking about, and from Voice of America.
Oh.
That I wanted to show. So that's the one that I'm talking about. So, and we can see the three slap bass channels here. I mean, bass channels.
Yeah.
And so that's the sound. I guess 12, 13, and 11, 12, and 13. So this in mic bass is like you guys placed a mic inside of the bass.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, Robbie had an idea that he had read about recording the upright that way, and if I can remember correctly, I think he took a mic and he wrapped it up in like foam or something, and he stuck it into the F hole.
That's a unique way to record upright bass, and then I'm surprised that since everyone likes that sound, and you guys did, like, did you never try like to replicate that sound?
Well, I guess not, because I think he had a very specific mic. I can't remember what it was, but it just came out. It just came out sounding pretty damn good. But I don't know. The next one was New Generation, the next album, and by then I had been using the magnetic pickups, and I was really happy with using a little bit of the electric sound and combine it with the acoustic. Like what we were doing there, like right off the bat was just it was sounding good for us, and we didn't feel like we needed to tweak it at all.
Okay. The Voice of America did have like very unique sound. So we have like a few questions. So, did you discuss maybe playing with the Quakes again?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I would absolutely play with the Quakes again. But the Quakes are so good. I don't know why I would play. I mean, and excuse me, I don't know the guys' names, but oh my God, the drummer and the bass player are so insanely good that there's
Wes and Juan.
There's no point in having me do anything.
Oh, Phil Edwards mentioning met the Quakes at Hamsby and they rocked the place. Great guys. And he wrote also cheers for the music from Facebook page. I like the sound of that. Okay, and Desert Psychobilly 25 also is asking you, what did you think of the Americans' acceptance and incarnation of psychobilly compared to what you've seen and grew up with in Europe?
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's great. I think it's great that there's all these new bands. No, I think it took a while.
It took a while.
I think it's super cool that there's a scene now,
USA Psychos.
Yeah.
Rule the underground.
Yeah.
Okay, so and let's get back to the bass gear talk, because I know that lots of bass players want to know about it. What are the pickups that you're using on your basses now?
Yeah. So since like maybe 91, maybe, I've been using EMG Select magnetic pickup bass, or pickup, electric bass pickup. So you can see there, it's kind of like I think it's roughly the same as like what Steve Whitehouse is doing. In fact, I think we played a gig in Germany or something like that, and he used my bass for the show. I don't know if he would remember, but he was pretty psyched that I pretty much had the same setup. So steel strings, I've always used steel since the late 80s, and then the mag pickup, and then of course up underneath we've got the contact pickup, which goes down the back of the bass, and that's for the slap.
It goes back in the bass. Okay, so you use like the 2 channels, or what do you do?
What's that?
You use 2 channels for these 2 pickups?
I use two separate amps.
2 separate amps.
Yeah.
That's a pain. You bring like 2 amps to every gig?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my rig's behind me. There it is. So I use a Carvin, a newer Carvin. I don't think Carvin makes amps anymore, but I know I love this thing. Carvin BX. It's a newer amp. I use that for the bass, and then I use an old Fender BXR for the slap. I've had that Fender BXR for forever, but I just use that for the slap now.
Interesting. And you mentioned steel strings, and then you said that you were playing different type of strings before. Was it guts, or what was it?
Yeah, in the 80s I horsed around with gut and nylon, which I think by, I don't know, maybe 88, 89, I switched to steel and never looked back. I mean, there's just no comparison for tone and stuff like that. I feel anyhow. Yeah, I use a Tomastic spiral core.
I love Tomastic. I've been endorsed by Tomastic for over 10 years.
Oh, right on.
They're great. So the first Quakes album those are not the steel strings, and all the other albums are steel strings?
I think that first album, I think those strings are gut. I think it's gut strings. Yeah. The bass sounds awful on that album.
It's a legendary album, people love it. My favorite is probably still Voice of America, though. I always like that one. Amps. You mentioned amps. Which amps you have, and are you using any other gear? Are you using any anything else? Any pedals or something?
No, I haven't. On a rare occasion, I'll pull out a delay pedal a little bit for the slap.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, which is kind of fun. Just get a tiny bit of delay, but for the most part, it's just what you see is what you get there.
It's yeah, like most of the bass players, except some of those, like you mentioned, Adam Ben Ezra, he uses quite a few effects very creatively and very, very nicely. I'm always constantly impressed with that guy.
Oh yeah,
musician. Like I have like a couple more questions, not too many, but if you remember something that you would like to mention, please let me know. And people are still here, nobody's leaving. I see these numbers and then they're just going up. Do you have any routine, like how you warm up before the show? Just go and play, just hit it.
I warm up by having a couple beers.
Oh, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it.
And is there anything that you would recommend for younger bass players, like to practice on a daily basis?
It's kind of funny. It sounds ridiculous, but when I first started playing in the, like mid '80s, I used to put a weight on my hand, on my the hand that I'm slapping with. So I put a weight on there, and just play. I would play as long as I could with that thing, and then when you take that off, then your arm feels light as a feather. Maybe that's not a great tip, but it worked for me.
That's kind of how you build the speed.
Yeah, I think so, and it really did help with keeping your stamina up and playing fast for a long time.
Huh. What is the fastest song you ever recorded?
Oh my God, I think it's Planet 9 on Voice of America.
Okay.
I
This
just
song
listened
was
to that
not
the other
on
day.
the original vinyl pressing, right?
What's that?
Is it that song is not on the original vinyl pressing, right? Or is it?
I thought it was.
Okay. Maybe I forgot. It's been a while, but I'm I'm familiar with the song, but I'm not sure if I had it on that vinyl that I had it
I
before.
thought so because I thought I just played that. I tried to keep up with it the other a few weeks ago, and my God, it's fast.
Oh, okay. So we got a psychobilly police here. It's on Quiff Rock.
Oh my God. Okay, it's Quiff Rock. Okay. What am I thinking on Voice of America? No, I can't remember. Shoot, I'm drawing a blank.
Okay. um so that's an interesting tip, like for the having weight on your arm and like building up speed. Have you ever do those like bumped over strings or something like that? Are you familiar with
No,
that?
no,
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
Okay, so like lots of psychobilly people, what they psychobilly players do, they put the G string on a place on D and tune it as a D, and then use a C string on a place of G, and then use it as a G. So the strings are kind of like spaghetti, and you can hardly you can just touch them and they already slap.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, that's what I didn't like about nylon and gut was there was too much give. I like the
Yeah, yeah,
steel because it's you can really dig into it.
yeah. I agree with that. I'm a steel string player as well, so and I play
And,
Tomastics and I love them.
and plus when you're plucking the bass, I always found that the nylon and the gut strings would kind of twist on you. As you're plucking it, they're kind of twisting. Um, but at least with this, the steel, they just have so much more tension or something. It just has a better feel, I think.
I agree with you. I never had my own bass strung with guts or any other strings, but I experimented on other people's basses, and um, I would say that only if I played that like how low can you go style, like Pops Foster, Thelma Terry, Steve Brown type of thing, Bill Johnson, I actually do enjoy playing guts. You get some of that kind of like old school sound that I always thought was cool. And we have Lalo Toledo here says, "My man, Team Steel Strings." Just so you know. Um, when you were touring, were you relying on the backline or were you bringing your own bass?
Yeah, always in London, or I'm sorry, England and Europe, it was always a back line. We were always sharing because we were always playing with festivals, playing with other bands.
Okay.
In Japan, it was pretty cool. They asked, we got to request what we wanted to play through. So that was nice. But yeah, you know what? They were pretty good about getting us what we wanted.
But I mean, as far as basses goes, like, did you have to play other people's basses, or you would always
Ah,
bring your own?
I always brought my own.
Oh, you did.
Always,
Okay.
always. I just can't stand having to. Even if it was for one show, I'd bring my own. I just can't stand having to
Oh,
play some.
really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. That's what I wanted to ask you. If you had to do that, like, did you have to adjust it or something? But if you were playing your own bass, that's obviously the best. Um, I think that's about it as far as. Is there anything else that we should have covered that we haven't talked about?
Gosh, I don't think so. I,
Oh,
I'd
okay.
encourage, I'd encourage people to check out the Irving Claws. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Rockabilly, psychobilly fans out there. Little garage mixed in there too, and that stuff's all available like either Get Hip or Discogs.
Okay. And can we hear some of your playing for the end as well? Do you have something for us?
Sure. Should I play a little bit of that tune we talked about?
Yeah, let's do that.
You want to do that? Okay. It's at the
Yeah.
end. If you need to trim it out, you can trim it.
No, no worries.
All right. This tune, this is an Irving Claw tune. It's on our last CD, Revenge of the Demon Tarts. This one we released in 2012. But I'm just going to play just a little bit of this, only because it's kind of, I think it's a good representation of what we do and what I try to bring to the band. It's kind of a mix of some slap and some plucking. So I'll just go ahead and start that. Sorry about that. Once I started playing louder, I couldn't hear the music. But you get the idea.
It's hard. Absolutely. Thanks so much for doing this. Oh, you have one more extra question from Keith Rawlings. Do you ever play or practice with the bow?
No, I never have. That would be cool, but no, I never have.
Okay. I always recommend to my students, to practice because of intonation and everything. It's a really helpful tool, even if you don't want to use the bow like for playing. Rob, it was a pleasure, truly a pleasure. Thanks so much for being a part of the Slapstream. And I want to ask you one more question for the end, and that's what inspired you to still play music after all these years, and why do you do it? And then especially nowadays when there's kind of like music is, I don't know what's going on with music and music business, but what inspired you to still do what you do?
You know, I just love it. I love being creative. I love the process, learning new tunes, writing originals, and of course, I'll never get tired of learning cover tunes and this and that, and coming up with something and then presenting it live. It's just very rewarding, and I still love it, and I'm still just taken back when people still show up to the shows, and they really appreciate the music, and it's like, to me, that's very flattering, and I'll never get sick of that. So yeah.
Thanks, and hopefully we're gonna go back to that normal phase soon, so we can all go out, play music, and enjoy live music. And thanks again for being a part of the Slapstream, for joining me here in Slapsville. And I hope to see you play again one of these days.
All right, man. Hey, everyone, stay safe out there. I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We're getting kind of close. I feel it in my bones. And by the way, man, if you next time you're in Buffalo, don't make sure you let me know.
I definitely will. Thanks so much, and good luck with everything.
All right, brother. Thank you.
All right, that's 43rd episode of the Slapstream with Djordje, live from Slapsville. Thanks to all of you for joining me and joining Rob, listening to all these cool stories, all these cool early psychobilly, rockabilly, slap bass stories that we all want to hear. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button, slap that like button, and write down in the comments under the video who would you like to see in the show. I've been doing it every Saturday. Who knows for how long I'm going to be able to do this. If you'd like to support the show, please check out the Patreon. It's in the description of the video. Please check out the PayPal and Venmo for donations. And I'm even working out on some merchandise that I think you're gonna like. It's gonna be cool, slap bass related, of course. And don't forget, never fret, slide it in smooth, and keep it in the groove. I'm Djordje, your friendly neighborhood bullfiddle cat. I'll see you next Saturday.